So I'm in town visiting from New York, used my Droid today, for example, Google Latitude, found where I was. I needed to find a Starbucks, found the local Starbucks, connected, gave me driving directions. I used my rental car, drove there. Love the access. I'm curious, as a consumer, sort of where the line is of saying, I can have my cake and eat it too. I want this access, I want to be connected, I want everything at my fingertips, and at the same time, I want to be protected and know that nobody is using my information to ultimately harm me. So I'm just curious if you guys can talk about that, sort of where the line is with the responsibility as a consumer to have that access, but also to be protected.
Yeah, and if I may, I'd love to piggyback on your question there and frame the context of your answers also a bit forward-looking. So we've been talking a lot about mobile phones, but as everyone in this room knows, there's a lot of location-based innovation around other kinds of mobile devices, cars and sneakers even. So as we're beginning to, yes, thank you, as we're beginning to talk about where that line is, let's also think about all these new location-based products and services that are coming out.
Sorry, just one piece I left off, talking about companies that are innovating much faster than the law is keeping up with them. Okay. That seems like it's a continuing evolution, right? And there are companies that are in this that are for-profit, trying to make money. So just how does all of that fit together to ultimately access the consumer or provide the consumer access and protection at the same time?
Right.
You know, I think that there's no perfect solution. There's no single solution. We've talked about elements of the solution. I just want to say that I think, that the one thing that I think consumers do understand, they do understand the advertisement piece. And I'm not sure that the worry of consumers is about advertisements. I mean, Trustee, I think, in fact, did some studies in terms of not the mobile context, but general behavioral advertising, and that consumers more or less understand that free is not truly free, that it's advertising supported, and that involves the collection of information for the customization of ads. I think one of the big things and I think consumers accept that. Consumers understand advertising, they understand targeted advertising, I think, and I think they're prepared to take that part of the deal. I think they have a great fear on what are the other uses to be made of the data, and I think they have a great fear about the sort of inferences beyond the delivery of that ad, particularly when you go into insurance, employment, credit, which, are three of the critical things in our lives. I also think that companies have an obligation, Laura mentioned privacy by design, to think about how much they collect and to think about how to minimize how much they collect. I mean, that's one element of the equation, so that if you were collecting it, delivering the ad, preparing that profile, perhaps not on a strictly personalized basis, there's no perfect single solution to this problem.
Right. Yeah. I mean, but there are some real common sense guiding principles. So, if a consumer is enlisting an online service to tell them what the weather's going to be, we give an example in the privacy framework that you would expect the service to look at your location to give you an accurate reading. But you would not expect them to, take your contact list or look at your call history or something like that. So, I mean, the kind of common sense approach is that you are designing a service that consumers understand what the service is, and you're only collecting the information that you need to reasonably deliver the service. And on a bright note, where consumers have been given choices about the kinds of ads that they see, many consumers have adjusted the kinds of ads that they see, which is great feedback for anybody trying to advertise to those consumers to have, but not, in fact, decided that they don't want to see any ads. Maybe some users will be in a position to say that in the future, but that's not been what's been happening so far.
I have to play devil's advocate here, because I love the idea of fair information principles. I love the idea of privacy by design. I thought, the first time I heard that, I thought it was a great concept. But I think we're being naive if we believe that companies will only go as far as what's exactly required to provide that service to the consumer. that can't be true by the law of economics, right? So much of what we do here, especially here in the Valley, is based on advertising, is based on knowledge of who's using our services. Why not collect that extra piece of information so that maybe that service we imagine in the future can be better enabled by the data we're collecting today? And so I would push back that this is inherent to the way people
I mean, the
build.
example that was just given, that's an example that we mention as a commonly accepted practice for which you don't have to give notice. If you're doing something to improve the design of your website or to kind of tabulate consumer reactions to your own service, that's a legitimate and kind of expected use of the data associated with just providing the service itself. But it's when you get into the things that are just more far afield, like what I mentioned about downloading a contact list from someone's phone who checks your weather service, that I think you do have some reason to question whether that's privacy by design.